Welcome to a very festive edition of College Fair Live. This is our 11th show in 15 months, and we are delighted to be back with you. Today, I also have an announcement that this fair has two sections. Very often, people who attend forget that, and sometimes uh, it's good to remind you up front. And then we'll begin with introductions of our panel, and then roll in with the first session topic. So the first thing you should know about this fair is that there are tables at the lounge where you can meet people one on one or in small groups in those table settings. And that's the most beautiful element of the AirMeet platform that we use. We've got rave reviews from everyone, and it's been such a delight to be working with the AirMeet team. So make sure that you not just attend sessions, but after this session, hop across to the lounge and take a seat at a table. So I'll also post the table numbers and sort of attendees at the table, so you know who to meet if you have a particular college in mind, or an organization in mind, or an educator in mind that you want to meet. The second, which is you're already at this, is the auditorium or the sessions area. So it's just good to see you that you've logged in seamlessly and it's all set. As we stream in, more people will join. And just to announce that one of our speakers couldn't make it. There was a bereavement in her family, but hope to catch up with her and do a webinar soon. So, without further ado, I think let's just get on with it. So, I have two lovely guests and very old acquaintances, first students and then great friends, and now colleague. Isha's also helping out uh, in her role as a essay reviewer and guide to our students. So, the first thing I would, also ask Prateek and Isha would be to not just introduce yourself, but tell us what you're doing at present, and so that we can dive straight into questions related to college and how and what helped you get where you are today. Isha, you want to go first?
Sure. Working in media, I think what I'm doing right now is a little bit complicated to get into fully because the pandemic really made an impact on the industry. The magazine that I was working with for 6 years um, took a pause overnight, and the entire team was let go with like 2 weeks' notice. And so there was like this period of great uncertainty when it comes to work, because this is a print magazine, and then you're dealing with the magazine closing, and you're dealing with the fact that print is dying, and there are all sorts of things happening. Um, but it's actually been quite interesting. I got into a lot of different kinds of projects. So currently, I'm working on a largely freelance basis. I worked with Apollo to help set up their team for a digital wellness platform that they wanted to launch. And I'm working a lot with companies that are based overseas, which I think has been one good thing about this whole one world digital global kind of a space. So I'm editing for magazines based in Southeast Asia, doing a couple of commercial projects in the editorial slash content space, again for brands here and overseas, and writing freelance for different publications. So it's actually a bit of a mix of all kinds of content, which is quite interesting actually from what I'd had the chance to do at only one place.
Great, Prateek. Why don't you tell us about your venture and how did you end up choosing to become an entrepreneur?
Definitely. So, hi everyone, my name is Prateek. I'm the founder and CEO of Swadesh. So, my story with Arjun started a long time ago when I was still in school in Delhi and decided to apply abroad. Uh, to talk about my venture, I should talk about why I wanted to go abroad. And that was because I always knew I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. I think that's one of the first conversations we had about startups. I was working on my own side projects when I was in high school, and I wanted to go to college in the US to be able to explore these opportunities. Studied CS and politics at Princeton, and in my final year, I had to make a choice. So I was either going to be a product manager at Uber, was considering becoming, doing the typical consulting route at McKinsey or something, or taking a big risk and doing something of my own. And naturally, I chose the latter because if not now, when? And luckily, it had always been my dream to not a company in the Valley. So I ended up doing that. Went to this incubator program called Y Combinator, after which we raised a seed round. And so yeah, we're building a fintech company that's been of particular interest to me. And I'm back in India now, growing a team over here. So what the company does is we're a very early stage startup, which is building India's first digital bank for Indian expats. The goal of what we want to do is pretty simple. We want to enable NRIs and members of the Indian diaspora outside of India to be able to invest in India. And that's because the mission that I'm very excited about is how to increase the flow of capital back to India, which I think is the foundation in which we can really help our country grow. So that's what I'm up to. Just doing what I want to do even before I met Arjun, and so it's been quite a roller coaster.
Right. So, the topic of today's session, I was thinking while curating it, was very often students who are attending these fairs or webinars have this question: how do we really find preferences? How do we know that Princeton would be good for us, or a Columbia would be good for us, or another university in another country could be great for them? What was going on in your mind, Isha, since you were applying for grad school, very different from undergrad at that point? What was going on in your mind in terms of preferences? And I'm sure it was more determined related to your career, but anything else that led you to finally choose Columbia? And the second part of the question is for both Pratik and Isha would be once you got into Columbia and Princeton, did it match up your expectation or whatever? Just not expectations, but and matching up sounds a little off here, but I think more to do with what was the wow moment or what were the learnings that you carry forward?
So I knew specifically that I wanted to go to the States for my postgrad. I did the UK for undergrad, and it wasn't a decision that I had made with any kind of thought. It was more like I don't want to do college in Delhi because there were no options at the time other than DU, and like I would not get into DU even if I had done really well in school. It was just not happening with insane cutoffs. And in private colleges, there just weren't options. So my idea of going overseas just came from the fact that I didn't want to be here for college. Um, it was a long time ago. And so the UK was my only option, actually. My family wasn't comfortable with me applying to the States at the time because I was also younger for my batch. I was 17, not 18. And I think it was just a little bit of a and with the UK, it's just in India, you feel a little bit more of a comfort. It's one flight away as opposed to two flights and God knows how many time zones. So I think with undergrad, I didn't really make a conscious decision. It was just a little bit more reactionary to whatever was in front of me. With postgrad, that's why I wanted specifically to go to the States. I think that the approach towards education from what I had seen was very different. And so I applied to 6 colleges and I ended up shortlisting between Columbia, NYU, and Northwestern. And honestly, like I had a chance to go to the States for like summer and I just went to all colleges. I wrote to them before saying that I'm a prospective student, I've got in, and may I come in and sit in on a class? So that's what I did. I went and attended classes at all 3 universities. And that's how I chose Columbia. I liked how I felt when I was there. I enjoyed the class. Um, Anderson Cooper just walked by in the class that I was auditing, um, talking about some story where he dressed up as a panda, and I'm just thinking that this is so bizarre. Um, but yeah, so I think that Columbia just because I went and I took a class, then I could gauge what being a student there would mean. It also had a little bit more of a campus compared to NYU, which was very, very scattered and just a building here and there. I think that the campus was stunning. And Northwestern, I think, went out of the running very quickly because there was just nothing around. I mean, I understand doing something like that for your undergrad, but there was just nothing around in Evanston. It was like the only thing that people would talk about was Chipotle, and so the vibe, like you actually interacting in a city and with me doing journalism and media, which is all about communicating with people, it was just a bit much. So I stuck to, then I chose Columbia because of that.
Perfect. I think being a grad school student, being mature about your choices definitely played up there. Pratik, I know you had various choices too. But more than that, while researching schools, there's also this whole element of let's talk size, let's talk setting, let's talk location, let's talk personality of the student body. So
Mhm.
there are so many things that go into make a student reflect
Yeah,
on what would be a good undergrad experience. You know, a suburban experience in your case uh, was very different from what maybe Isha was expecting at Northwestern for grad school. So tell me, how did it all pan out for you?
yeah, definitely. So I'll start off by saying I think Isha did the college selection the right way by actually visiting the campuses and trying to figure out what would be a good fit. Most of us, when we're applying abroad, really don't think about that. I think we're really swayed by rankings or what the media tells us or other such factors. And one of the greatest lessons I learned is like once you get there, none of these things matter. What matters is are you actually having a good time? Are you learning? And are you enjoying yourself? And maybe if you're in school right now, this would sound a little ridiculous to you that what does this mean? Like if I say that weather plays a very big role, like you just probably brush it aside. But trust me, after 4 years living in the Northeast and I think Isha can connect with that as well. With the Northeastern winters, it's like there's seasonal syndromes and everything, and there's a reason why people in California are happier sometimes, or like weather plays a big role. TLDR, like
Brutal.
weather plays a big. Yeah, it's so there are all these other factors that you really need to think about, like like you said, with the student body, what sort of characteristics are there, what sort of the environment are you enjoying yourself or not. So when I was going to college, like Arjun, as you know, got really lucky, had some great choices. I was debating between similar schools. There was UPenn and Princeton, and well, for me it was like I really didn't think much. I was like, yeah, Princeton, nahi, theri chalna hai. So I just like was like, okay, like I'm off there. And once I got there, I think I had a really great time. So to say that it was amazing, and what really reflecting back, the reason it was so good is because we had the ability to take smaller classes, and my college experience was very different from Isha's. We were literally in a bubble. One of our main songs is "Nothing Ever Happens at Princeton" because at least you had a Chipotle and you would talk about that. We got a Chipotle, I think, later down. So there was practically nothing around, but it was a very sheltered experience, and I think that was really good for undergrad because similarly, like leaving the country as a 17 or 18-year-old, like being in the exact opposite time zone. So if it's like 10 a.m. here, it's 11:30 p.m. there, or if it's 11 a.m. here, it's like 10:30. It's just like a 12 and a half hour difference. So it's very hard to connect with home. So for all these reasons, having that sort of sheltered experience was honestly wonderful. And we were in a suburban environment, and I really enjoyed that because college took a lot of care of us. So that's basically what I was focused on. If I reflect, like it was that which really was a good part of my experience. And Arjun, I've totally forgotten the second question. Can you repeat that, or the second part of the question? Arjun, you're on mute, by the way.
Yeah. All right, thanks. So yeah, we segue right into the next set actually of questions, about more about academic life and figuring how it all works for you, and what you really need help with, what resources you would sort of look up to use on campus, what were your role models in terms of academic sort of goals that you'd set for yourself. What are the experiences you had in terms of undergraduate research or industry sort of interface universities offered? So, Isha, go with you first.
Hmm.
Did it really, when you went thinking that you'd be becoming this journalist coming out of MA journalism from Columbia, how was it actually like? Did it really help you define your goals better?
I think so. So, um, it was a very immersive college experience. So everything was learning by doing. Um, if we were doing a reporting class, we actually reported. Nothing was assignments weren't handed to you, so you had to find the story. Um, and I think doing that in a city like New York was definitely interesting. And there were a lot of times where you came across and where you realized that you were missing stories because you didn't look at them a certain way. For instance, I was doing this one interview with somebody, and I completely glossed over one bit of information that she'd shared with me, and that ended up being a story in the New York Times the following week. And it just made me think a little bit in terms of how when you have this single-minded approach to something where you're just going in thinking this is my story, this is what I want to do, you miss out on so many other things. Um, so I think with the it was definitely very practical, and New York was a great space to practice journalism. There were just so many interesting people. I was interviewing this freegan, this guy who basically dumpster dives for food out of like an ethical obligation, according to him. And so you hanging out with them. Like a lot of my other stories were with bipolar subway musicians, and you're just so immersed in that city that it was from that point of view, a great experience. I went in knowing that I did not want a very typical campus experience. I'd already done that before. So I didn't stay on campus. And a lot of the stuff that I did outside of my classes was actually stuff that was not related to Columbia at all. So I didn't partake as much in what the college had by way of extracurriculars or events and things like that. But um, I went I went to the theater. I saw plays alone. I walked everywhere. So I walked like 100 blocks a day, just trying to explore the city on foot. And I think that that was the education that I chose. Mm, Not to say that everybody in my batch had the same experience, but I think that I was able to choose the kind of education I wanted, and I wanted that to be a little bit outside of the college and a little bit more focused on the city as well. Mute Arjun.
Arjun, you're mute.
Yeah, again. So, Pratik, what we'll do quickly is also talk about academics, but segue also into our next question, which is figuring out, the main experiences that shaped you as a person outside of academics. So that would be great. And I know many people on are leaving questions, so that's great. And I think if you want us to talk about admissions and how you got in, I think that's also the follow-up question. So please wait up, and we'll cover that too.
Sure, sure, sure. So, in terms of academics, I'm sure a lot of folks would like these in my time. A lot of people were sort of you could categorize them into liberal arts or engineering, and so anyone who's interested in going towards engineering or studying computer science because America is sort of the land of opportunities or whatever, the most important thing I learned is more than my engineering education, it was the liberal arts aspect of my education which shaped me and made me a better engineer and made me a much more smarter thinker and honestly like a founder because and of course I like credit my engineering side as well because that enabled me to have this sort of logical like I think it's the right side of your brain that you use for the logical thinking, but it's really the classes I took in history, politics and other subjects that enabled me to think critically. And that is so like the key takeaway for me for studying in the US was that I learned how to think. For studying in India, I never knew how to think. I knew these are the formulas, here's what I plug in, here's the answer. Or these are the facts I need to memorize, and this is how I pass the exam. Everything was sort of like, you could game it. But over there, you really had to sit down and really think about what are your opinions? Can you defend them? Are there arguments, pros and cons? And I think that's the most important skill that, that shaped my academics and my life for me. And honestly, like we always talk about it, we leave with a degree in critical thinking. And even as a startup founder, if I have to think about the problems I'm trying to solve or the strategy I need to come up with, or how do we build a product, the most important thing to do first is prepare and plan for it. And so I think any of the courses I took, I think that was the most important aspect. Now, speaking a little more tactically about the benefits I got out of Princeton were, sure, the courses were great. We had these amazing professors. The guy who created the language C was, a professor. One day, Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, just showed up to class because he could, and he's an alum. And we'd have these crazy experiences where you'd have like the founders of like half the VCs in the US, like both like partners at Sequoia, etc., were just like alums, and it was a college network, and I'm sure it's the same at Columbia, which really made a massive dent and impact on me because more than you can get a good education anywhere. I think it's also about the opportunities that are available to you, and that only comes with a human connection. And so, of course, there was funding for research. I was always more interested in entrepreneurship. So, in terms of stuff I did out of academics as well, I ended up building Princeton's first incubator because I'd always been interested in startups. And then, Joe Lonsdale, who's the founder of Palantir, it's like a $50 billion publicly traded company in the US now. He just like flew into Princeton, I gave this talk, and I got to have lunch with him. He's now an investor in my company, which is not public, so please keep it to yourselves. We haven't really released that, but there were these opportunities that were afforded. I could just just in an afternoon, if I'm done with class, I could just walk into a speaker session by a US ambassador, or perhaps the specialist, the person who sort of wrote you know drafted the my thesis advice, for example, was the guy who wrote USA's AI policy. Like, he was the deputy CTO of the US government. And one evening, Rahul Gandhi showed up, and then sometimes Indian politicians would come up, and we'd just be like, I got more insights into their thinking, and I could grill them way more than any news reporter ever could. So those are like some crazy opportunities that I'm always thankful for. And yeah, honestly, like, college did a really good job in terms of preparing us for job internships as well, and future careers, because it was again like a trickle. It was again the alumni network, because there's a very strong sense of community that people have in US colleges, and in terms of alumni relations, and they really help you go further. So if you do attend a college in the US, I think one of the least tapped in, or the most underutilized resource is the alumni network, which can, they go out of the way to bat for you. And that's something that, everyone should really focus on. What was the other thing you wanted me to answer, Arjun? And you're on mute just before you go ahead.
All right. So yes, I think that's absolutely fine. It's more about shaping, your thinking and opportunities that you had, and you kind of wowed us with, stuff that you could do there. So great. I think a lot of the people and the questions that are coming in are really about admissions. But just to let everyone know, there are several sessions, and we have sessions on studying in Canada, how to get into colleges in Canada, studying in Europe, how to get into colleges in Europe. We have another session on getting into highly selective universities in the US coming up, which I'm hosting later this evening. So yeah, feel free to just stay around. I think it's going to be a great event. We have a good lineup. And also for folks who joined in a little later, just to remind you, at 6:30, make sure that you hop on to the lounge section and meet people there. There are university reps and educators, and we'll be hanging around at the Brand table as well to take in questions. I know there are some interesting specific questions on performing arts and many other things that have come in. Love to address those and learn something about you as well. So one last thing that we want you to share, Isha and Pratik, is share some life gyan. I think about college admissions. It's such a stressful period for kids who are applying for 2022, the cycle. And I know students who've totally frozen up, like saying, we can't think straight, we can't get our essays sorted, and they're sort of undermining their capabilities. What is it that you feel you would advise students who are applying this year? Pratik, you can go first.
Yeah, let me just go first. I see a couple of questions about AP programs, international summer, programs and stuff. So to answer your question, first of all, I didn't have AP credits. I didn't do any international like summer program. Uh, my profile, if you think about it, was very counterintuitive. Arjun knows. So I didn't have perfect SAT scores. In fact, I didn't even get an 800 on my subject tests. And I thought that was the end of the world. I thought everyone applying from India has an 800 in math and physics. And I didn't. I got like 790 and 770. And despite that, like, I did okay. I got into a bunch of Ivy Leagues. I got into a bunch of other universities. My SAT score wasn't the best. It wasn't even 2300. My grades in school weren't, they were good. They were good enough, but it was not, I wasn't like a 90% or anything. I was decent in academics, but I think what's really like, if I were to give life yarn, it's obviously don't mess up your academics. It's important. You can't, there's no way you can circumvent it. Do well, but what US colleges I think were really looking for is interesting and unique individuals who had something beyond just like the numbers in the profile. So what really worked out for me is just I followed what I was, I followed my passions in school. I used to love debating and quizzing, so I did really well in those things. I was like a national level debater. I like went for this competition from NASA. It was like an international competition we won. And I started my first company in school. I had a web design business. Then I did a startup. We got into an incubator program around here. Did a bunch of stuff, right? And those are the things that really like helped me stand out, because there were a lot of kids, like perhaps thousands of kids with better grades than me, better subject test scores than me, better like test scores with all these AP, had AP credits and done like all these things that I didn't have or didn't do. But they didn't get in and I did, because I think what really helped me is that I just followed my heart in some sense and saw what I was good at and what I enjoyed. It's There's this theory, which Justin Brown, the founder of Twitch, talks about a lot, which really resonated with me. Anyone has three circles. So the first one is circle of incompetence, where what you do you're not good at and you don't enjoy. A subset of that circle is circle of excellence, which is things you are good at but you don't enjoy. And the most inner circle is circle of genius. And those are the things that you're good at and you enjoy. So what I would advise anyone is find your circle of genius, find things you're good at and you truly enjoy, because then work doesn't feel like work and you can really excel, and that's honestly all you need. But then again, hindsight is 2020, so it may not work out. But at least that's what worked out for me. And yeah, that's the yarn I will give. And if you like, right now, if at least when I was applying for undergrad, I was very focused on like rankings and reputation, and like all these other factors. Like, am I going to get a job or not? I would say trust the process. If you immigration in the US is damn hard. It's almost impossible. All my friends who have, even if you go to the best universities in the US, like my friends who went to Stanford and, you know, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, etc. Like, it's been 3 years and they're all coming back or going to London. US is almost impossible to settle in unless A, you find someone to marry, which is sure, like good, you can make that work. Or second, you have $2 million in spare change that you can invest to buy a property and get a green card. But don't worry about immigration too much. I think the biggest benefit of attending, getting an education in the US is that it helps you think, it opens doors for you, it really enables you to sort of, get that branding as well. So even if you come back, you'll do super well. Like, it really sets you up for whatever you do, wherever you do. And that's basically like, the main thing. And once you get to college, I will say college are some of the best 4 years of your life. And don't worry too much about just, getting the best internship or doing the best in class. Like, go, the things you will reflect back on and remember are fun memories you made. Like the one time, I don't know, you like took a train to New York the night before your exam, or you did, I don't know how many things I can share here, but the things that you did that you were not supposed, like the fun memories and the experiences are what you'll be left with. Like, you may not remember the random statistics and the facts or the questions or the problems that you solve. Of course, don't take this as advice that bomb all your classes, but like do other interesting things, because that's what you look back.
Perfect. Isha, over to you.
Okay, so that was really comprehensive. I won't add too much there. I want to talk a little bit from the application process when you're actually sitting down and doing your essays and ideating and trying to think of what you want to write and how you want to come across. Um, I think that we touched upon this earlier as well, but there are so many essays. Students are applying to so many colleges. I mean, single students might be applying to 10. Multiply that with like 2 to 3 essays per college at least. And there are so many essays that are, I think, putting a lot of pressure on students. But I think the approach towards those need to be a little bit more holistic. So it's looking at it from the point of view of communicating enough about your life where you come across as interesting. That's something that is going to be that's a skill that you're going to need for the rest of your life. You will constantly have to sell yourself to employers. You will have to sell yourself to investors. You will have to convince people that you are somebody worth hiring or paying attention to. Similarly, if you're looking at how you're communicating or the structure of an essay, that comes across as how well you write an email, how well you're able to put your point across. And it's not just your college essay, it's so much more than that. And I think that using these as a way to get comfortable with written communication is key, because your entire life will be filled with written communication in some way or another. The number of emails you're going to have to send people, you can't even imagine, right? And it's whether you, in my career, if I want to reach out to people to interview them, I have to make a clear enough pitch in my email that makes it worthwhile for them to even respond to me. Your college application is no different. It's preparing you for real life. And I think that's something to definitely pay in mind. I had told Arjun this earlier today, but I think that one of the things that you could possibly do is to try to do voice notes and answer questions as opposed to writing it down when the blank screen is too much of pressure. So maybe that's something to do. But I think that the essays, rather than thinking of them as just to-do lists that where you just rehash one essay for like 5 colleges and just get it done because you have like a 300 word count, um, I definitely think that they need to be looked at with a little bit more of a long-term vision.
Hey, great. So I think it's time we've overshot our timing for this session, but looking forward to meeting you at the fair at the lounge section. We'll be there at the Edbrand table for a bit, and also make sure that you stay on and have actual conversations with admissions officers who read your files. So the good thing about this fair is that the admissions officers who are here are regional sort of heads or specifically read applications from South Asia and parts of say Southeast Asia. So you'd actually make those connections, and when you apply, it's worth mentioning that you've met so and so at the fair, had this conversation. There's an additional information section at the Common App. If you can customize it for different colleges, you can always mention things like that. Or in the supplements, they generally have questions related to how did you first hear about us. So looking forward to many more such events and see you at the lounge. Thank you, Isha, and thank you, Pratik, for being wonderful panelists, and hope to see you soon in person.
Definitely. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.
Thanks.